Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Damasco, Grandmaster of Steve Damasco Shaolin Studios, Martial Arts Studios. I just want to say, again, that I don't ever get tired of watching those monks. People ask me all the time, do they really do all that stuff? The answer is yes, they do all that stuff and more. I'll be going to China again this year, as I always do, to train with the senior monk Yanao, and be bringing students from all 4 of the states that we have martial arts studios in. And I'll be really looking forward to that. It's very exciting. So we'll be going in July, and can't wait to go. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about a subject I have not spoken about. But one of the things that our full-time chief instructors and martial arts instructors are trained in, and that is autism. So I've done a lot more research on it. As you know, my graduate degree is in behavioral psychology, and one of the subjects we teach our people is about dealing with autism. And a lot of this stuff crosses over to ADHD, some of the behavioral issues and behavioral disorders cross over, that some of the traits that autistic kids do have are similar. So anyway, I'm going to go through some of this. There's so much stuff online, and based on the research that I have done over the number of years, and more so the number of children that we have in our schools currently, and the children that we've dealt with, so that I've chosen the material that I've chosen to read about and reference corresponds and correlates with the kids that we do have and we've had over the number of years. So I'm going to read some stuff to you about autism that I pulled off the line. Autism is considered a lifelong developmental disorder. Okay, now having said that, that has been disproven, but there is still a lot of behavioral psychologists, psychiatrists, and behavioral and autism experts that will disagree with that statement. That it is true. Because I disagree with that statement, because there are people that have disproven that autism, is not lifelong, and there have been studies and therapies that have been done that have disproved that it is a lifelong developmental issue. But the people that believe that it is lifelong will say, well, it's been misdiagnosed. So that's their answer to that. That in fact, that if you've seen we've had kids that are not we have, but kids that was diagnosed with this issue, with autism, and then it has been cured, then the experts will say that they were misdiagnosed to begin with. Many will disagree with that. Some of the remedies that they've used, tried to use to deal with autism have been vitamin shots, nutritional supplements, detoxifiers, special diets, pressurized rooms filled with pure oxygen, removing heavy metals from the body. No evidence indicates that any of them alleviate any of the core symptoms of autism, let alone eradicate any of them. I'm going to give you an example of a family that did exist with autism and what the symptoms were, because this is very typical. We're going to call this baby A. Baby A seemed normal, but around 12 months, baby A seemed to regress. By the age of 2, he fully retreated into his own world. He no longer made eye contact, no longer seemed to hear, no longer seemed to understand the random words he sometimes spoke. His easygoing manner gave way to tantrums and headbanging. He had been happy little guy. All of a sudden, he was just fading away and falling apart. He received a diagnosis of autism. Now, I'm going to just read that one more time. At 12 months, he seemed to regress. So prior to 12 months, he seemed like a normal child. At the age of 2, he fully retreated into his own world. He no longer made eye contact, no longer seemed to hear, no longer seemed to understand random words that he sometimes spoke. His easygoing manner gave way to tantrums and head banging, which happens a lot with kids with autism. He was a happy little guy. All of a sudden, he faded away and was falling apart. This is typical of kids that fall into the spectrum of autism. And then he was diagnosed with autism. Now, the studies that I have researched and the studies that have been done, which I'm going to be talking about now, are called Applied Behavior Analysis, ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. Now, the first studies that were done on this, they use basically like a behavioral modification program. So there were a couple of areas in which you deal with. You deal with the behavior issues, okay, because a lot of kids with autism have outbursts of behavior from anywhere from a lot of different outbursts, from just running around to physically getting physical, to banging their heads on the wall, to loud noise, making loud noises. I mean, just major issues of behavioral outbursts. So what this behavioral modification program, it's like a behavioral modification program. Again, the initials are ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. It was a behavioral modification program, basically based on a reward-based system. So what they did is they tried to correct behavior, and when they demonstrated, when the parent or the expert would demonstrate the behavior, the good behavior. When the kid had the bad behavior, they would demonstrate the good behavior, and they would be rewarded with, basically in the beginning stages, the parent would reward them with M&Ms. And the kid obviously liked the M&Ms. And they found out by doing this that they could somewhat correct behavior based on this reward-based system. Now, families that tried doing this, some of the family studies that I had looked at that did this, then went on to hire, ABA experts. Now, this is very expensive. That was one of the problems. But one of the good things about ABA experts is that they'll not only come in and train your children, but they will then train you how to train your children, because they don't do this. They do it full time. They'll do it so many hours per week, and they'll train them in these areas. But you need to obviously be able to follow up. Very difficult to do if both parents are working in the household. But it has worked, and I'll go on as I explain more about this to prove that it does work. Researchers did and find that early intensive behavioral therapy could improve language, cognition, and social functioning, at least somewhat, in most autistic children. In the last 18 months, two research groups, this is very important, in the last 18 months, two research groups have released rigorous symptomatic studies providing the best evidence yet. In fact, a small but reliable subset of children really do overcome autism. Okay, this is where we get into the controversy. I said reliable subset of children really do overcome, autism. This is where you'll have a bunch of experts that'll say this is not true, that they were poorly misdiagnosed. Okay, but let's say you don't believe that autism can be overcome, but it is proven. Most, if not all, researchers will tell you that behavior and cognitive therapy, can improve speech, and it can improve social behavior, when done properly. Deborah Fine has been studying autism for the past 40 years. Deborah Fine is a clinical neuropsychologist who teaches at the University of Connecticut. She looked at 34 young people. She confirmed that all had medical records documenting autism. So all of them had documentation stating that they had autism. They now no longer had met the autism criteria she called optimal outcome. Now, how did that happen? The study that they did was they did this behavioral and cognitive therapy on these kids. And at the end of the study, the testing showed that they no longer had the symptoms of autism, which is just incredible. And they did that with 35 kids. Then they went on 34 kids. Then they went on and did a second study with 85 children, and the results were exactly the same. Researchers also say that parental involvement, acting as a child's advocate, pushing for services, working with the child at home seems to correlate with more improvements in the symptoms. Financial resources no doubt help. Now, again, there was a family that their child I read about, that had severe autism. And they took out a $100,000 loan. And they did this type of therapy with their kids, with their child. And I mean, he was severe. From a 1 to 10, he was probably somewhere in the spectrum of 8 to 10. But they went, and the $100,000 was to be able to have somebody come in, an expert come in, work with the child, train them how to work with the child, and then when that money had exhausted, they then took over the therapy. This kid today, I mean, they did everything from diet to I mean, the diet was totally no sugar in the diet. They went on a vegan diet. They replaced all the furniture in the house to soft furniture. I mean, like basically air mattresses and things of that thing, air couches that were filled with air. I mean, they went the full gamut. They were just determined, okay, and she was a stay-at-home mom, so they were fortunate. She was just determined to change this kid's life. And today, that kid has totally tested out of being autistic. And again, there are experts in the field that say that they couldn't believe that this kid had autism to begin with. But he was totally okay, tested at the high end of the spectrum for autism. And now, I mean, it took a number of years for this to happen, that this kid is fully functional, high school graduate, college graduate. You know, if you want to see something amazing, one of the most powerful and most interesting movies I've ever seen, okay, was Temple Grandin. I've watched that movie about 2 or 3 times. I mean, that was just a great movie. That movie was about a woman that, that was just brilliant. I mean, she went on to just go graduate high school, go to college, go to grad school, and became a PhD. She was the one that I don't even want to tell you about the movie if you're going to watch it. But it's very, even if you don't have autistic children, I mean, it's just an inspiring, motivating movie. It's called Temple Grandin. If you ever get an opportunity, you should. You get it on Amazon. It's just a great movie, very inspiring. But if you have autistic children, it's a must-see movie. And she just did phenomenal things with her life. She's still here. This is really interesting. One of the other experts in autism, Dawson, wondered whether steering autistic children's attention to voices, gestures, and this is really good. Another expert, Dawson wondered whether steering autistic children's attention to voices, gestures, and facial expressions alter their brain development. So in a randomized clinical trial published in 2012, she tracked 2 groups of autistic toddlers. 2 groups. One had received 25 hours per week of behavioral therapy designed to increase social engagement. Again, one group received 25 hours of behavioral therapy designed to increase social engagement, and a control group that received whatever treatments their community offered, behavioral, some and some not. After 2 years, the brain activity in the control group strongly favored non-social stimuli, but the EEG of the social engagement group were now similar to those of typical developing children. Again, the ones that received what the community had to offer, if they got anything at all, okay, had no improvement whatsoever. But the EEGs of the social engagement group were now similar, the brain activity, to those of typically developing children. now it gets even better. It appeared that the brains had in fact changed. Though the children were still autistic, this is unbelievable, their IQs had increased. Unbelievable. And their language and social engagement and daily living skills had improved, while the children in the control group had progressed noticeably less. That is amazing, amazing. Their IQs had improved. Now we're going to talk about what I know in terms of what we are dealing with. There's a teacher, okay? And I keep referring to one of these teachers because this teacher goes outside the box. Teacher is in Massachusetts. She was trained by us. As I've told you before, how much time do I have? As I told you before, our instructors in all our studios, our full-time chief instructors, are trained as obviously martial artists and black belts, but they have to go through a 2-year academy, learning all about how to deal with, you know, ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, autism, Tourette's, okay, with kids with these issues, you know, with these problems. This teacher was actually going to be a full-time instructor for us, and she decided, and we're happy for her, and she's doing great, to be a school teacher. But she's had all the training to work for us. And she has, because I've told you about inclusion, she has an autistic child, 5 years old. And when this child came to a class, this child would not socialize with anyone. She wouldn't play with other children. She wouldn't sit next to other children. As a matter of fact, there wasn't a teacher in that school that could handle this kid. On a spectrum from 1 to 10, she was somewhere at that time around a 5, maybe a 6, probably around a 6, based on the behavior if I was going from a 1 to 10, which is pretty high. That child now, okay, plays with other kids, sits at the table with other kids, okay? And it's really interesting because other teachers can't handle her. If somebody else is working with her, they have a very difficult time getting her to do what they want her to do. But isn't it interesting that this teacher, okay, her teacher, her kindergarten teacher, can get her to do it. And when she says to her, I need you to stop doing that, when I hear these stories literally on a weekly basis, because she's outside the box doing these things, and we test these theories all the time. And she says to her, I need you to stop doing that. She goes, okay, miss, I'll do that for you. I don't want you to be mad at me. She doesn't give her M&Ms. Doesn't give her M&Ms. Doesn't give her candy. Doesn't give her an award. She gives a positive reinforcement. She gives a positive reinforcement. She's with that child 5 days a week, as she is with the other 16 kids in her class. She gives a positive reinforcement and she cares about that child. The same thing we do in our schools. And now that kid, just this week, now an autistic child, as you know, doesn't like loud noises. She obviously still has a problem with that. When it gets too loud, she'll put her hands like this and she'll flutter her eyeballs, and you know, and she'll, and the teacher will calm the, you know, make the class a little bit, you know, less noisy. But just this week, I was so exciting when she told me that they were doing some sort of game, and she actually had her hands, because autistic kids will come up sometimes and put their hands around you, but you can't put your arms around them. But she had no social interaction with other kids, and again, she couldn't sit at the table with other kids. She was away from them, which she totally has been doing for a number of months now. And now, just this week, she had her arms around kids. And a huddle. How exciting is that? Talking about explaining the game to them. She took the lead of how that game was going to play out. How interesting is that? Her social skills have improved. Her behavior is totally from 1 to 100, 1 to 10 is improved to a 10. I mean, totally awesome. She just has to tell her once to stop whatever she's doing when the behavior gets out of line. And she says, okay, Miss So-and-so. For some reason, I do this because when she's talking to me about this, she goes like this. The kid does that all the time. It's just so incredible. It's just so exciting. So this has been done. This has been done. So why can she do that and the other teachers can't? Because they don't know how to handle that. They don't get it. Because she's used those skills to be able to be consistent. It's based on a reward, and the reward system is respect, and the reward is, that's really good. I'm very proud of you. You're doing such a good job now. And when she's not doing a good job, they know it, and she wants to please the teacher. It's very, very exciting. Now, we have a lot of autistic kids in our karate studio. I have 7 minutes. 6 minutes. We have a lot of autistic kids in our martial arts studios throughout the 4 states we're in. We're in Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. And again, our instructors, our full-time instructors, are trained how to deal with these kids. Our program is designed because we deal with kids with ADD, ADHD, okay, behavioral disorders. And again, we deal with a spectrum from 1 to 10. Okay, we have private, semi-private. What's a semi-private? Anywhere from 4 to 6 kids. And group lessons. Group lessons are included. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm not selling the program. I'm explaining how this has to work. Because they come in and they get evaluated. The children come in and get evaluated. They get a free lesson. Okay, we don't tell them it's an evaluation, but in fact it is. Okay? And remember that this is, I'm talking to New Hampshire, I'm talking to Keene people right now in the surrounding Monadnock area, but this goes on YouTube and it goes on Facebook. Well, people all over the country, in fact the world, see these videos, okay, this show. So they go in and they get evaluated. Some kids can, our goal is to get a kid to a group class, just like that teacher got that child to be able to work with other kids and play with other kids. That's our goal. Our goal is to get them into the group class. Social and behavioral skills. We don't deal much with language. We leave that to the experts. But we're experts on social and behavioral issues. We're experts at that. And we deal that with kids across the board, on all levels. So they don't like to be touched. We know that. And we recommend, depending on where they are in the spectrum, okay, putting earplugs in their ears so that muffles the sound if the noise gets too loud. And if the noise is too loud, again, they get evaluated. If their behavior it goes over a 3 or a 4, then they need private lessons. If they're somewhere in between there, they might be able to handle a semi-private lesson. And if they're over that 4 or 5, they have to be in privates. The goal is the progression from a private to a semi-private to a group class. Our goal is to be able to get them to do that. And we've had tremendous success with that. Tremendous success. And we've had kids. We have some schools that have up to 10, 12, 13 autistic kids with everybody else. And nobody knows that they're autistic. All kids have some sort of behavioral issues. All kids like to act out. It's natural. It's what happens. So we treat everybody the same. And again, I've spent 45 of my years doing this for a living. And one of these days, people are going to understand that this is not a recreational sport. It's not. Now, it isn't a recreational sport. I don't know where. I love baseball. I coached baseball. My kids play baseball. I play baseball. My kids play basketball. For years, I coached basketball. I love sports. But there is nothing you can do anywhere where they're going to get this type of training on a behavioral, social skill level where you're going to go to a martial arts studio Okay, because the style for kids is not important. What's important is the training that they're going to get, that they can't get in school with 16 or 20 or 30 other kids, okay? How are you going to hit a home run that day, or it depends on 4 other kids on the court, or on football, they're not going to get that, or how the coach is going to treat them, or does the coach like them, are they starting that day, or are they not starting that day? I mean, it has nothing to do with that. We're all the same. You only have to be better than yourself than you were the day before. It's an individual thing, and they're never going to get those social skills. They're never going to get that behavioral skills than in one of our martial arts studios. And I'm not just promoting my schools. We only have 14 studios right now. I'm promoting martial arts in general. I have a student in Southern Massachusetts. If you have autistic kids, he's an expert in autism. I didn't train him. He's college educated. He spent years learning about autism, and he teaches a tremendous amount of autistic kids in Southern Massachusetts. If you're in Southern Massachusetts, contact me. I'll give you his name. Okay? If you're in other parts of the country, all right, tell me. I've been in this for 45 years. I'll check out the school for you, and I'll find out what the curriculum is, and if can they really deal with autistic kids, even though they say they are. Some of them say a lot of things that they can't do. So it's not just about my 14 schools. This is a big country. A lot of people say they can do a lot of things, and don't get fooled by the Black Belt Hall of Fame and all those trophies hanging in the studios. They mean nothing. There is no regulation in our industry. Look online. The credentials we have, you can't buy. But if you have any questions about martial arts studios and you have kids, okay, with special needs, please contact me. I'm easy to get a hold of. It's just Steve Damasco at AOL. I'm here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.
Yeah!